The sounds of people screaming for help echoed from the rice fields in Nghia Thuc village in the middle of the night. "Help, someone please help us." The cries startled many. Mrs. Kim opened her door, squinting her eyes, still blurry from sleep. Then she saw two figures running for their lives. One figure stopped and stammered, "Aunt Kim, we saw a ghost. Where is it?" Mrs. Kim, still groggy, reached out and flipped the light switch. Light from the bare bulb flooded the courtyard. That's when she recognized one of the figures as Kyle, a young man from the village. His arms and legs were covered in mud, and on his bicep was a long, bloody scratch. "Kyle, were you fighting somewhere?" she asked. "No, Aunt Kim, I saw a ghost." "A ghost in this village? There's no such thing." "I'm telling you, it was terrifying." "So where is this ghost now?" Kyle took a deep breath, trying to suppress his fear, and began to recount. "This afternoon, Victor, Mrs. High's son, won the lottery, so he invited me to the local pub for a drink. We'd been drinking for a while, but it wasn't enough, and the pub was closing. So he convinced me to buy more liquor and some snacks to take to an abandoned hut in Ms. Ba's rice fields to continue our drinking session. I had nothing else to do, so I agreed. We were about to finish a whole bottle of liquor when Victor nudged me. "Hey, Kyle, look at that." I looked in the direction he was pointing and saw a figure walking through the rice paddies at the end of the small path. At first, we thought it was someone from the village, but looking closer, it was a young woman with long hair. She was carrying a heavy-looking bamboo basket. Victor, being naturally playful and flirtatious, stood up and whistled. "Hey, little sister, where are you going at this hour? It's dangerous for a girl to be out alone. Are you lost?" Before Victor could finish, the girl quickly replied, "Thank you, but I'm visiting relatives nearby. I'm not lost." "Relatives, huh? Who do you know in Nghia Thuc village? Tell me, you're carrying quite a heavy load. Let me help you." Without waiting for her reply, Victor quickly left the hut. I hesitantly followed. As we approached the young woman, I noticed a sweet fragrance emanating from her. It wasn't pungent like the perfumes girls usually wore. It was a soft, delicate, and incredibly pleasant scent. "Here, let me carry that for you," Victor said, extending his hand. The girl readily agreed, handing him the basket. Victor was overjoyed. Though he wasn't handsome or tall, his mouth was his most potent weapon. As we walked, Victor, fueled by alcohol, tried to flirt with her, using increasingly vulgar and crude language. Yet the girl didn't seem bothered at all, responding gently. I walked beside them, feeling like Victor and the girl were a couple. After a while, the girl stopped. "We're here, thank you both very much." That's when Victor and I noticed a large, ancient-style three-room house in front of them. A big red lantern hung by the gate, casting a dim, eerie glow. Of course, both of us had lived in Nghia Thuc village for over 20 years, but we had never seen this house before. I hesitantly asked, "Miss, where is this place?" "You two are from this region and don't know? This is my grandparents' house. I'm here visiting them." "You both seem a little drunk. Would you like to come in? My grandfather loves guests, and he'd be delighted to entertain you." I hesitated, about to shake my head and refuse, but Victor, standing next to me, interjected, "Sure, I'll go in." I immediately clapped my friend on the shoulder. "Hey, aren't you worried? It's the middle of the night, and we're just barging into someone's house. What's there to be worried about? If they invite us, we go. It's not like I'm forcing my way in, right?" The young woman flashed a bright smile. "Don't worry, sirs. If I'm not scared, why should you be?" As she spoke, the main gate of the house slowly creaked open, revealing a small, hunched figure. This person was also holding a tattered red lantern. "You're back, child?" "Grandfather, I'm home." "Who are these two?" "They were very kind, grandfather. They helped me carry my things back. I thought I'd invite them in for a visit." "All right, come in, young men." I was still wary, but Victor confidently stepped forward. After a moment of hesitation, I reluctantly followed. Once past the gate, the house revealed itself to be grand and imposing. It was entirely made of wood. Though not professionals, we could tell that the owner of such a grand estate was not poor. In the living room, the young woman pointed to a nearby set of tables and chairs, saying to the short old man, "Please have a seat, gentlemen. I'll get some wine, and you, grandfather, please go to the kitchen and prepare some snacks for our guests." Soon, I saw the old man bring out a small porcelain wine bottle and pour. He said, "You two are very lucky. A friend just gave me this bottle of wine. They say it's a precious concoction, steeped with aged ginseng and buried for decades. Drinking it will boost your vigor, and for old men like me, it might just add a few more breaths to our lives." Victor laughed, a wide, excited grin on his face. "Wow, such a rare wine. How can a humble man like me dare to drink it?" "What's there to be afraid of? This house rarely has guests, so after this, who knows when I'll have company again? Grandfather, hurry up." The girl emerged from the inner chambers, carrying a tray with 2 plates of food, featuring beautifully prepared sliced meat. Its aroma wafted directly into our noses. "Just make yourselves at home and eat and drink with me. When you're drunk, you can rest in a room. I'll have the girl prepare one." For me, everything felt like a dream up to this point. Many questions arose in my mind. Victor, however, was completely oblivious. He just drank, ate, and gazed adoringly at the girl. When I didn't touch the wine glass in front of me, the old man asked, "Why aren't you drinking, young man? Don't you like this wine? Should I pour you something else?" "Oh no, sir," I replied. "I don't dislike it. This wine is very fragrant, but I have a question for you." "What is it?" "I've lived in this village for a long time, but this is the first time I've seen you or this house. Is this still within the boundaries of Nghia Thuc village, or is it somewhere else?" "Nghia Thuc village? Of course, my house is in Nghia Thuc village. But you're only in your 20s, how could you know about this house? It has been here for hundreds of years." With that, the old man took a deep gulp, emptying his wine cup, then threw his head back and let out a long, eerie laugh that echoed as if from a deep, hidden place. It was quite bizarre. I suddenly remembered a trick people shared. If you encounter strange things or hallucinations at night, you can lightly bite the tip of your tongue. The pain brings clarity and restores your senses. I immediately did so. And when the pain shot through my tongue, a horrifying sight met my eyes. There was no grand, ancient house. I was sitting on a desolate, overgrown mound of earth. The old man was now a monstrous, decaying figure with a gleaming white skull. On the ground, there was no wine or fine food, but piles of worms and croaking frogs. Victor, it seemed, hadn't realized anything. He grabbed a frog, bit it in half, and the poor creature's blood and guts splattered everywhere. "Delicious," he slurred. "You're really a great cook. Do you have a boyfriend?" Victor asked, reaching out into the air. Realizing I was in a dire situation, I urgently punched my friend's shoulder hard. Victor, startled, turned to me. "What was that? Stop messing around." I stood up abruptly, pulling Victor's arm, and we both ran for our lives from the area. After a short distance, Victor asked, "What's going on, Kyle?" "We just encountered a ghost. Hurry up and throw up everything you just ate." Poor Victor, he didn't dare stop running, gagging, and trying to make himself vomit. I stopped my story here, panting. "It was terrible, Mrs. Kim. I'm still terrified just recalling it." "So where's Victor now?" "I don't know, he probably ran home, scared. Mrs. Kim, please, don't ever go out to the fields at night. It's too dangerous." With that, I quickly left, leaving Mrs. Kim with a worried look. Mrs. Kim was over 50. For people in the countryside, spiritual matters were nothing new. But this was the first time she'd heard of a ghost haunting the abandoned mound in the fields. She recalled that the mound had been there for a very long time, never owned by anyone, left deserted. Some duck farmers had built a hut there years ago, but after the poultry epidemic over a decade ago, they abandoned it and the hut fell into disrepair. Not far from her own house, some fields bordered that mound. Whenever she worked in the sun, she would go there to rest. Nothing out of the ordinary ever happened. After a while, Mrs. Kim muttered, "Those two drank too much and imagined things." It was getting late, so she quickly went back inside, locked the door, and got back into her creaking bed to resume her interrupted sleep. But Mrs. Kim couldn't have known that the story she had just heard was the beginning of strange events that would unfold in the near future. 3 days later, it was the full moon. Mrs. Kim woke up early to prepare for the market. Every full moon, she would buy fresh fruit and flowers to display on her ancestral altar. Her parents had passed away, and she had married, but the two families didn't get along. After her husband left her for another woman, she had remained single until now. As she reached the market gate, Mrs. Kim paused, looking around. Her cautious nature had saved her from trouble many times, preventing her from being caught by thieves. The market today seemed much busier, probably because it was the full moon. After parking her bike, Mrs. Kim picked up her basket and walked in. After buying a bunch of green bananas, some other fruits, and a fresh bouquet, she finally stopped at Mrs. Tu's stall, which sold votive paper and offerings. "Sister Tu, can I have some votive paper?" "Oh, Sister Kim, I'm all out." "What? It's the full moon today. So many people are buying. Why didn't you stock up? It's still early, this is unusual. Goodness gracious, I did prepare, but I just sold everything. Mrs. High came and bought millions worth. I had to empty my entire storeroom. Now I have to wait for my husband to go get more from the town. He won't be back until early afternoon. The more Mrs. Kim heard, the more curious she became. Mrs. High, what does she need so much votive paper for? I don't recall her having a custom of making offerings on the full moon. That's what I was wondering too, but I heard Mrs. High isn't buying it for the full moon offerings. She's buying it for an exorcism for her son, Victor. Mrs. Tu looked around, then leaned closer. I'll tell you something, but don't tell anyone, okay? I'm not one to gossip. But earlier, I pressed Mrs. High, and she told me Victor has been tormented by a malevolent spirit. For the past 2 or 3 days, he's been acting very strangely, agitated and destructive. Yesterday, she couldn't take it anymore, so she called a master to perform a ritual, and it turns out Victor is possessed. And do you know what? This spirit is from your Nghia Thuc village. A spirit from our village? Can you tell me more specifically? What happened? I don't know the exact details. I just heard Mrs. High say that the spirit is from that mound at the end of the village. Victor must have gotten drunk and provoked it, and now they're tormenting him. I thought you, living in the village, would know. Mrs. Kim paused, then remembered what Kyle had told her the other night, and she murmured, could it be true? What, do you know something? Oh, nothing. If you want to buy votive paper, come back early this afternoon. I don't have any left to sell now. All right, I understand. With that, Mrs. Kim turned and left. On her way home, she couldn't stop thinking about the possession. As she passed by the village entrance, she glanced into Mrs. High's house. The gate was closed, but inside, she heard continuous ringing bells and rhythmic wooden clappers. She also smelled the lingering scent of incense smoke. From what she had heard, Mrs. Kim guessed that an exorcism was taking place inside. Standing outside the fence of Mrs. High's house was a group of about 7 or 8 people. They were mostly neighbors and villagers from Nghia Thuc. Her curiosity sparked. Mrs. Kim parked her bike and approached a familiar face to strike up a conversation. Sister Ba, hello, Sister Kim. What's going on at Mrs. High's house? They're performing an exorcism for Victor. An exorcism? A possession? What Mrs. Kim heard next was similar to Kyle's story. The woman added that Victor came home that night with a high fever, and it didn't subside even with medicine the next morning. He became delirious, so Mr. and Mrs. High took him to the district clinic. That same day, Victor's fever broke, and he weakly recounted his encounter with the girl's spirit. After he finished speaking, his fever returned and his condition worsened. Mrs. Kim suggested taking him to a higher-level hospital, but just as everyone was despairing, Victor suddenly woke up. His fever was gone, and he insisted on going home. At first, Mrs. High disagreed, wanting him to stay for observation. But after the examination and his persistent demands, the couple reluctantly agreed to take him home. When they reached the house gate, he unzipped his pants and urinated right by the main gate. Mrs. High, seeing this, gave him a sharp smack on the shoulder. Are you crazy? Why are you peeing here? Victor just grinned at his mother's scolding. I was so desperate I couldn't hold it. Then hurry inside, Mrs. High said, looking at him with concern. Mr. High then directed him to the faucet to rinse it off, noting it would smell later. But the strange events didn't stop there. During dinner, Victor ate like a starving person. He devoured an entire pot of rice, which Mrs. High usually cooked extra for fried rice the next morning. He even said he wasn't full and insisted Mrs. High cook him another bowl of instant noodles. At this point, Mrs. High just thought he was hungry from not eating all day in the hospital. After cooking the noodles, she urged her son to eat quickly, then coaxed him to his room to rest. The next morning, Mrs. High woke up. Since there was no leftover rice, she decided to cook a pot of porridge with some preserved meat she had in the fridge. But when she opened the freezer, she was startled to find all the boxes of raw meat empty. She immediately asked her husband, "Husband, where are all my meat boxes in the freezer?" "Where you put them? How would I know? Why are you suddenly asking me?" "Did you take them to share with the neighbors for a drink last night?" "Woman, if I took them, I'd tell you. Do I look like a thief, or did you ask Victor? He was sleeping early after eating, what would he know?" "Well, go ask him. Unless a thief broke in and stole nothing but meat from our fridge." Her husband's words seemed logical, so Mrs. High went to Victor's door and knocked. "Victor, are you awake yet, son?" Finally, she heard her son's voice. "What is it? So annoying, I'm trying to sleep." "Did you take your mother's meat boxes from the fridge?" "How would I know? Maybe the dogs or cats were messing around." "Dogs and cats opening the fridge for meat? What nonsense are you talking about?" "I don't know, don't ask me." Annoyed by her son's difficult tone, Mrs. High didn't press further. A little later, after the porridge was cooked, she knocked on his door again. "Victor, it's morning. Drink your medicine before it gets cold." Oh, this boy. "Even if you're not hungry, you still need to eat to take your medicine. You're not fully recovered yet. Hurry up. If you don't open the door, I'll drag you out." "I'm not hungry, it's so annoying," Victor said, and Mrs. High heard the sound of the door being bolted. "You stubborn boy, you're starving now." Mr. High, who had just finished bathing, walked up. "If he's not hungry, leave him be. Don't you remember how much he ate last night? But he's grown, you don't need to worry about every little thing. It's not early anymore. You eat your porridge and let Victor rest today." Mrs. High sighed, then turned back to the kitchen. She not only prepared breakfast, but at noon, when she called Victor again, she received the same reply from him. "I'm not hungry, Mother. Don't bother me. You two eat first." Mrs. High was tired of it all and decided to let her son be. Then, as dusk fell, Victor finally opened his door and stepped out. At this point, he was like a hungry tiger, sniffing for food. Whatever he found, he shoved into his mouth. Seeing this, Mrs. High snapped, "Didn't you say you weren't hungry earlier? Look at you now." "I wasn't hungry at noon, but I am now. Go cook some rice, I'm starving." "Wait a bit for your father to come home so we can all eat together. The rice is already cooked. I'm just reheating the soup." "What the hell are you waiting for? Where did you learn such ill manners?" But despite his mother's scolding, Victor still went to the kitchen and ate the rice heartily. Just like last night, Victor finished the entire pot of rice with his astonishing appetite. Mrs. High's surprise turned to alarm. She felt as if the young man before her was not her son. After eating, Victor returned to his room and shut the door. But Mrs. High couldn't sit still. She went to her son's door. "Victor, what is it? Open the door and talk to your mother for a bit." "What is it? I'm exhausted, I'm practically dying." "Exhausted? Do you need to go to the hospital?" "No, I just want to sleep and get some rest." "How about I get you some oil for a rub? Open the door." "No need, you're bothering me. If you don't open it, I'll use the spare key." "You're so annoying, go away." Mrs. High was both angry and surprised by her son's reaction, and of course, she wouldn't let it go. After finding the spare key, she fumbled to insert it into the lock, but before she could even turn it, she heard a loud click from inside, followed by the door flying open. Victor rushed out, shoving his own mother aside. It happened so fast that Mrs. High hadn't even registered what happened before her son ran into the courtyard. Just then, Mr. High returned from the fields. He stopped his motorbike right in the driveway. He thought Victor would crash right into him, but then in the middle of the yard, Victor suddenly collapsed to the ground, screaming, "Father, help me, it hurts, it's so hot." Mr. High immediately tried to help his son. "What's wrong, Victor?" Mrs. High ran out from inside. "Husband, Victor." Victor seems to be afraid of the sunlight. He tried to shield his face, his whole body recoiling. Seeing that Mr. and Mrs. High were caught off guard, Victor once again sprang to his feet and rushed back inside. But this time, his speed wasn't as fast as before. He staggered step by step. He fell to his knees a second time. Mr. High had to help his son back into the house. Strangely, once inside the living room, he seemed somewhat relieved. He pointed to the main door and yelled, "Close it, it's too uncomfortable." Mr. High was about to comply, but was immediately stopped by his wife. "Husband, wait, why wait? Victor is acting so strange, it's as if he's not our son." Just as she finished speaking, Victor looked up, his eyes wide, and let out a chilling, eerie laugh. "Close the door. If anything happens to me, your son will die with me. Don't trick me. I'll make his soul return to his body." The voice was low, deep, and sounded like an old man of 70 or 80. Mrs. High's legs trembled, but Mr. High was calmer. He stepped forward, grabbed Victor's arm, and in a stern voice asked, "Victor, how are you feeling? Is anything wrong? Should I take you to the doctor?" "I already told you I am not your son, Victor. Victor's body has been taken over by me." He let out a loud, mocking laugh. Mrs. High, being a believer in the spiritual, immediately clasped her hands together and prayed, "Namo Amitabha Buddha. Sir, please, whoever you are, don't possess my son. Why did you enter his body? I like it. Your son is mischievous and playful, and he even tried to flirt with my granddaughter, and I think he's a good match for her. I was planning to take him down with me so I could have a companion. Otherwise, my granddaughter and I would be so lonely and cold down there. Good heavens, how can this be? Sir, please show mercy. My husband and I only have one child. They say parents are responsible for their children's actions. If he did something wrong, please punish me instead. If anything happens to him, how can I live? No, I have decided I will take him no matter what. Tomorrow, after this full moon night, you two prepare a funeral for him. No need to burn a lot of votive paper. My family is very wealthy, I can take care of him, Victor said, his body twisting, his eyes rolling back. After a few convulsions, he burst into tears. Mom, Dad, help me. They're trying to take me away. These weak cries for help only lasted a moment before Victor became motionless. He looked dazed and grinned. This is not good. Mr. High turned to his wife. Wife, quickly run to the next village and call Master and Gap. I'll stay here and keep an eye on him. Mrs. High nodded vigorously and ran off without even putting on her hat or grabbing a coat. Master and Gap, whom Mr. High trusted, was a shaman who specialized in geomancy, fortune-telling, and presiding over funerals and ancestral rites in Nghia Thuc village. About half an hour later, Mrs. High returned with Master and Gap. He was a middle-aged man with a small, agile build like a spider. His complexion was dark, but his eyes were very bright. He had barely entered when Master and Gap paused, closed his eyes, and looked at the main pillar. Master, please hurry inside and help my son. Wait, why is your house gate so defiled? Don't you two keep it clean? What are you talking about? There's nothing dirty on my gate. Your ordinary eyes can't see the filth, but with my spiritual vision, I see it so dirty and polluted that even the guardian spirits can't stay. They've all left, you see, and this is caused by someone from inside the house, not an outsider. Mrs. High immediately remembered and stammered, You're right, Master and Gap. Yesterday, when Victor returned from the hospital, he stood in front of the gate and urinated. I knew it, but I also suspected it wasn't your son. That entity is a powerful, ancient evil spirit, very cunning and deceitful. Normally, if it possessed Victor after a certain amount of time, the positive energy in the house, especially from the ancestral altar, would expel it. But this one act alone has almost neutralized everything that could protect Victor. Oh my God, I had no idea. Stop standing here complaining. Let's go inside so I can assess the situation. As they entered the living room, before they could do anything, Victor suddenly glared and growled. Get lost, you charlatan. Do you want me to kill you right here? Despite Victor's harsh and offensive words, Master and Gap remained calm. He smirked. Save those words for children. Who are you? Where is your spirit from that you dare claim your identity while I'm still talking respectfully to you? Do you know who I am? Even your ancestors might not have more experience than me. So, it's an old spirit, huh? How old, I wonder? Tell me, why did you possess this young man? Why should I tell you? Get lost, get out of here or you'll die, Victor said, raising his hand to strangle himself. But before he could, Master and Gap quickly moved. He leaped, placing his hand on top of Victor's head, pressing down. The swift, decisive action made Victor's body convulse violently. It hurts, let me go. So, will you speak or not speak? I'll speak. Then, everything was revealed. This spirit was indeed the old man's spirit that Kyle and Victor had encountered. His history was that of a powerful mandarin who lived about 500 years ago. His family was wealthy, his daughters married into noble families, and his sons held high positions. Thus, he had immense wealth. But before he could enjoy his fortune, a plague struck, claiming the lives of both him and his young granddaughter, who was in her teenage years. The family held a grand funeral for them, burying them in a patch of land that is now the abandoned mound at the edge of the village. After burial, due to their profound attachment, the two spirits could not leave and remained bound to this mortal realm. At this point, Master and Gap asked, Then why, after hundreds of years, have you not appeared until now? In this region, I know all the places with strong negative energy, and I always find ways to neutralize them to prevent misfortunes. It's true that my granddaughter and I couldn't manifest before because when my descendants chose the burial ground, they mistakenly picked a spot where a powerful dragon vein flowed. As a result, my granddaughter and I were suppressed by its immense spiritual power and couldn't escape. Whether it was fate or not, a few months ago, the earth covering that dragon vein was cut off, allowing my granddaughter and I to finally appear. So that's how it is. But even if you can appear, you can't just exist and harm the living like this. Do you know this is a grave offense against heavenly law, leading to eternal damnation? I know, I don't mind, but my granddaughter died too young, so she still has many unfulfilled desires. She wants me to capture Victor to be her husband. No, Mrs. High immediately interjected, falling to her knees. Sir, please have mercy on my son, don't take him. If I don't take him, my granddaughter will. Who gave you permission to take him? Sir, you are an elder even older than me, so I ask for a path for reconciliation. Let your granddaughter directly tell me her desires, and I will mediate this matter. Otherwise, I will use powerful spells, and I warn you, when I get angry, I don't hold back. Even if the Jade Emperor or King Yama himself appears, I will fight. Under Master Ngap's resolute determination, the old man's spirit gradually relented. When Victor convulsed a few more times, the spirit exited his body. He breathed heavily, weakly calling out, "Mom, Dad." Mrs. Hai hesitated, but Master Ngap reached out his hand. "It's Victor now, not the old man's spirit." "Oh, thank you, Master, thank you so much," she said, embracing her son, but she quickly noticed Victor was still dazed. "Master, please, is my son truly all right? I'm still worried." "Rest assured, everything takes time. He's been possessed for 2 or 3 days, his soul isn't completely intact. Tonight, after he eats, wash him with lime leaves and bathe him thoroughly. Then tomorrow, sit by the ancestral altar. Tomorrow is the important day. You two prepare a grand offering, buy a lot of votive paper and gold ingots to call back Victor's complete soul. Only then will he fully recover. My husband and I will prepare immediately." While his wife was caring for their son, Mr. Hai approached Master Ngap. "Master, earlier I overheard the story and I have a feeling this isn't over. What about the young girl's spirit?" "Indeed. Although her spirit has left your son's body, we can't predict if similar incidents will happen again in Nghia Thuc village. And also, it seems that night, it wasn't just Victor who was involved, was it? There was Kyle too. Where does Kyle live? I want to go check on him." "Kyle's house? It's not far from here, just a dozen houses away." And when Mr. Hai and Master Ngap arrived at Kyle's house, he too had started to develop a fever. Apparently, for the past few nights, Kyle had been dreaming of the young girl's silhouette, but she only stood outside the gate and never entered. After a brief examination, Master Ngap stated, "Young Kyle, your family's good fortune is still strong. Your ancestors are protecting you. The girl's spirit couldn't enter, but if you go out on the street, she will follow you. That is extremely dangerous." So Master Ngap instructed Kyle's family to prepare an offering, promising to return the next day after finishing up at Victor's house. Mrs. Kim heard all this, her face a mix of confusion and worry. "Oh, this sounds serious." "It is serious. We're standing here now, but imagine later. When Master Ngap comes to perform the ritual, I'll ask him if there's a definitive way to stop this. Since yesterday, people in the village have been spreading rumors, so now no one dares to go out at night, and even those with fields near the abandoned mound don't dare to go work." Mrs. Kim sighed. "Namo Amitabha Buddha. I pray that whatever happens, the heavens protect Nghia Thuc village." Mrs. Kim strained her ears to listen further, but the longer she listened, the more she realized she had her own duties to attend to. She whispered, "Sister Ba, you stay here. If anything else happens, please tell me, okay? I need to go arrange offerings on my altar now." "You go ahead." After arriving home, Mrs. Kim brought out the fruits and changed the flowers on the altar. Her usual prayers were joined by an additional one, for Nghia Thuc village to be free from misfortune and danger. It was now evening. Mrs. Kim had just finished washing clothes. The sky looked overcast. She guessed it might rain tonight. She decided to go outside and check the irrigation ditches. True to her word, Mrs. Kim put on a jacket, donned her conical hat, got on her bike, and headed straight for the end of the village. When she arrived, besides seeing her own rice fields, there was also a group of people gathered. As she got closer, Mrs. Kim recognized some villagers, including Mr. Hai, Victor's father, and Master Ngap. They seemed to be performing some kind of ritual. She cautiously approached. "Mr. Hai, Sister Kim. Mr. Hai, what are you doing?" "Oh, sister, haven't you heard about Victor's situation? I heard that Victor and Kyle were both treated by Master Ngap. But now I see you here, performing a definitive ritual." "Yes, I hope everything goes smoothly so Nghia Thuc village can return to peace." Just then, Master Ngap instructed everyone to stand on one side while he, dressed in his ceremonial robes and holding a staff and a wooden sword, began to walk around. He chanted spells and twirled around as if breaking through invisible barriers. After about 15 minutes, Master Ngap breathed a deep sigh. "Master, what's going on? Is it finished?" "It's not finished yet. The old man's spirit has been dealt with. He agreed to ascend to the pagoda. But his granddaughter's spirit is very stubborn and powerful. I'm afraid my current strength isn't enough to completely resolve this. Does that mean there's no other way?" "There is, but—" "Master, please tell us. Everyone here is family and friends. You don't need to hold back. I think it might be too much for the villagers. This kind of incident has never happened before. Please tell us, Master." The people around him also urged him on. After a moment of thought, Master Ngap sighed and said, "There is a way. My master once taught me a method called the Maiden Ghost Ritual. It possesses immense power. To appease her and make her let go, we need to perform continuous rituals for 7 days. And we must build a shrine, which will be very costly. I know that people in Nghia Thuc village live by farming and are not wealthy. I might even forgo my fee. But this ritual will be so expensive, I'm afraid people won't be able to afford it. At this hesitation, Mr. Hai said, "Good heavens, is that all, Master Ngap? Just tell us how much it will cost, and then we'll know if we can afford it or not. The situation has come to this. There's a saying, better to lose possessions than lives. If we regret being stingy and then our children and grandchildren face calamity, who will we blame then? Besides, the abandoned mound isn't some remote, isolated place. Dozens of villagers pass by it every day. I'm not even talking about my son Victor, who suffered so much. Luckily, Master Ngap is here to help. Otherwise, how much will it cost, Master? Just give me a specific number." "I can't say for sure yet, but just preparing the offerings and building the small shrine will cost about 10 to 20 million dong, not to mention the money for Master to take her spirit to the pagoda. And I won't even charge for my services." Master Ngap's words were not light, and some people remained silent. Mr. Hai looked around, then addressed Master Ngap. "Perhaps we should discuss this further. For now, we thank you for your help, Master. We hope everything will turn out well." Master Ngap agreed. So everyone helped burn the votive paper and gold ingots with a heavy heart. "From now until we find a solution, I advise everyone to limit nighttime travel in this area. No matter how careful you are, you cannot outsmart the spiritual realm." A moment later, after the paper offerings had turned to ash, Master Ngap gave a few more instructions and then left. That same day, Nghia Thuc village held a meeting of its residents. Those directly affected, like Mr. and Mrs. Hai, began to present their case. Of course, some agreed, while others felt it was a waste of money. They argued that only families with sons needed to worry, while their families with daughters and young children didn't venture out to that spot at night, so why should they contribute? The arguments went back and forth, dragging on until late. Then Mr. Hai spoke up. "Fellow villagers, it's getting late. Let's quickly finalize a plan. I think we can't force everyone to contribute equally. So, whoever wants to contribute, please raise your hand so I can list your names. Then I'll talk to Master Ngap and give him the final price. I don't want to coerce anyone. This is for all of us. The money you earn with your sweat and blood is precious, but only when a loved one faces danger do people truly understand its worth and regret not being more generous." After Mr. Hai's words, about a dozen hands went up. However, compared to the total number, it was only about 50–60%, but this initial contribution was enough to proceed. Mr. Hai returned home to find his wife and sons sitting in the living room. Victor, after Master Ngap's ritual, looked more stable, but his eyes still showed fear. "How was it out there, husband? Is the meeting over? I'm worried too few people will contribute and we won't have enough to perform the ritual. But I can't blame them, money is hard to come by." Mrs. Hai sighed. "Namo Amitabha Buddha. I pray our ancestors protect our family and keep us safe." After praying, she turned to her son. "And you, from now on, you are absolutely forbidden from going out at night to drink and party. You're not young anymore, almost 25 years old. Focus on your work, get married, and give me a daughter-in-law and grandchildren." Victor replied. "Good heavens, why do you keep bringing up marriage every day? I'm still young. And after what happened, even if someone gave me money, I wouldn't dare go out anymore. Mom, please rest assured." With that, Victor stood up and returned to his room. Mrs. Hai didn't forget to remind him, "Don't lock your door, okay? So I can come in if I need to worry about you." "Don't worry, Mom. The ghost must have been driven away by Master Ngap. It won't possess anyone anymore." "Be careful, Victor. All right, go." But when he returned to his room, Victor surprisingly smirked. If Mr. and Mrs. Hai had seen this, they would surely have thought he was still possessed. But no, there was no possession. This was all a plan concocted by Kyle, Victor, and Master Ngap. Let's rewind 2 weeks. Kyle and Victor were sitting in a coffee shop, frustrated about a failed lottery bet. Just then, Master Ngap, who was sitting nearby, approached them. "Kyle, Victor, do you two want to earn some money?" They both knew of Master Ngap's reputation but had never interacted with him. Kyle guessed the master wanted them to assist with a ritual, so he quickly replied, "Yes, sir. Do you need help with anything? Just tell us where and we'll go." "It's not a complicated matter. I think only you two in this village can do it." "What is it? Now I'm curious, tell us. There are too many people here. How about you two come to my house tonight?" With that, Master Ngap left. At first, Victor wasn't very keen, but thinking they needed to find a way to make money, they went to Master and Gap's house that night. Upon their arrival, the master didn't waste time and told them about his plan to use fake ghosts and spirits to extort money from the villagers. Kyle and Victor would play the roles of people possessed by spirits from the abandoned mound, where there were no ghosts at all. They would collaborate to create a chilling story, and Master and Gap would exaggerate everything to extract money. He also promised that if the plan succeeded, he would give them a generous share. Master and Gap's proposition was appealing to Kyle and Victor because pretending to be haunted wasn't too difficult and didn't require any real sacrifice. So they nodded in agreement, and the plan unfolded up until today. Victor quickly pulled out his phone and messaged Kyle. "The meeting is over. It didn't take long." He didn't have to wait long for a reply. "So how much do you think we'll get from this?" "How would I know? But I'm guessing a few million dong at least. You and I can go out and drink to our heart's content. If we're lucky enough to win a few lottery tickets, we won't have to worry about money for a whole month." After a few more messages, Victor put his phone down and drifted off to sleep. A week passed. Today, Victor was excited because yesterday was the last day of Master and Gap's ritual. Master and Gap had called and asked Kyle and Victor to come to his house this afternoon to receive their share. Victor was so eager he hadn't even finished lunch. At this moment, he stood in front of Master and Gap's gate. Kyle stood beside him, equally excited. "Master and Gap, Kyle and I are here." Inside, Master and Gap quickly walked over. "Victor, help me with this rusty gate. I just saw it here and now it's gone." After a short delay, the gate finally opened. The two friends slipped inside. However, Victor's joy was short-lived. In the living room, the master pointed to an envelope containing only 2 million dong. Victor's excitement turned to disappointment. He frowned. "What kind of business is this, master? Why only 2 million for us?" Kyle, feeling equally cheated, added, "Exactly. We acted like we were performing rituals for several days. Are you trying to trick us?" "No, not at all. It's true there were rituals and the shrine was built, but your Nghia Thuc villagers are so stingy. All those people, and they only contributed less than 20 million dong. Most of that went to buying materials and paying the shrine builders. What was left, I had to stretch thin just to buy the offerings. You two even got more than I did. Is that true?" "Of course it's true. Why would I lie? We're in this together. Why would I play tricks on you? If you don't believe me, go ask around and see if what I say is true." Victor wanted to argue more, but Kyle interjected. "All right, let's consider this a successful collaboration. If you have any more schemes, master, just come to us." "Of course, I'm planning another one around the 7th lunar month. The more enthusiastic you two are and the more others you can convince, the better." "All right, let's go, brother." As they walked out, Victor complained. "Kyle, why didn't you let me say a few more words? We might have gotten a bit more money." "Forget it. We were only estimating 1 million each anyway. This is good enough. We got what we wanted. Besides, I think the longer we argue here, the more suspicious people will become. Let's head to Old Man Bay's dog meat shop at the end of the village and have a few drinks. If there's any money left over, we'll use it for a lottery ticket tomorrow." The two sat and drank until around 9 p.m., then headed home. When Kyle arrived home, he parked his motorbike inside. Mrs. Lowe, his mother, came out, holding a switch made of mulberry branches. She swung it, making a boom-boom sound against the air, then pointed inside the house. "Get in now. How many times have I told you? Don't come home late after drinking. Aren't you afraid of it?" Ignoring his mother's worried look, Kyle laughed. "Oh, Mom, what is it? Such superstition? The ritual is over and Master and Gap did it, so there are no ghosts anymore." No, Kyle, you can't be too sure. Haven't you heard the saying, walk too much at night and you'll meet a ghost? Go inside, wash your face, hands, and feet, and then rest. Remember what I told you, absolutely no more drinking and partying." I know, it's so annoying," Kyle said, entering the house with a triumphant smile, because only he knew the truth, there were no ghosts at all. After washing up, Kyle lay down on his familiar bed and immediately fell asleep. In his mind, he thought that tomorrow he wouldn't go drinking with Master and Gap, but instead, he'd bring some wine and snacks back home to drink with Victor and his other friends. But he had no idea what would happen the next morning. Kyle, a loud shout woke Kyle up. "Who's there? What's going on?" "Kyle, wake up, something big has happened." "What is it, Kyle? Did you go drinking with Victor yesterday?" "Yes, we ate dog meat at Old Man Bay's house at the end of the village, not far." "Why do you ask about him, Mom? Did he come here to drink again?" "No, Victor. Victor is gone, he's dead." Without a word, Kyle's eyes widened. "What are you saying, Mom? Victor is dead, how, where?" "I just heard people talking." After you two went drinking yesterday, he drove his bike straight into a ditch. Mr. and Mrs. High tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen. When he didn't come home that night, Mrs. High called him, and Victor said he was staying at a friend's house until morning. But this wasn't the first time, so they just sighed and went to sleep. But just now, someone came to report that Victor was found motionless in a ditch on the road leading to the district. There are no houses along that stretch. When they tried to take him to the emergency room, it was too late. From the scene, it seems Victor fell into the ditch himself. Are you serious, Mom? That's what I heard. Now let's go check it out. Are you coming? I'll wash my face and then we can go. Wash what? Just put on your clothes and let's go. A moment later, when Kyle brought Mrs. Lowe to Victor's house, a large crowd had already gathered. Kyle stopped his bike and he and his mother rushed in. Indeed, everything Mrs. Lowe had heard earlier was true. Around 9 a.m., an ambulance stopped in front of the gate. Victor's body was carefully placed in a simple coffin and carried into the house. Mrs. High cried inconsolably, "Why did you leave us, my son?" "My husband, please tell everyone in this village that my son Victor was not taken by evil spirits." Mr. High bowed his head, saying nothing. By now, everyone knew that Victor hadn't collided with anyone. He had simply been too drunk and lost control, causing the accident that took his life. Seeing his best friend's lifeless body, Kyle was stunned. He just sat there, unresponsive, oblivious to everything around him. His eyes stared blankly into space. He remembered last night, they were still drinking and chatting happily. Kyle also remembered that as they were about to pay and leave, Victor mentioned some friends inviting him to drink in town. At that time, Kyle had told him to go home and rest so they could have a big drinking session tomorrow. Victor had grumbled, but now Kyle could only sigh in despair. Just then, a familiar voice made Kyle jump a little. "Kyle, hello." It was Master Nghia, carrying his toolkit. "Hello, Master. I heard Mrs. High called you this morning, and you just made it here." Kyle sighed, recounting everything. Master Nghia listened, then clicked his tongue. "Indeed, life is impermanent. I just saw him alive, and now he's departed. Well, you sit here. I'll go inside and perform the funeral rites." "Yes, Master." A moment later, Mrs. Lowe had to go home to take care of her chores and help with the funeral arrangements for Victor's family. It wasn't until night that Kyle saw the last guests leave the funeral. He went inside the house. Mrs. High looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Kyle, thank you. Today, in our confusion, if it weren't for you, your father and I wouldn't know what to do." "It's nothing, Aunt. Don't be so formal. I should be helping my best friend, especially after this happened." Kyle's words of encouragement brought a wave of emotion to Mrs. High. "How can we get through this, child? Your father and I only had him. He was mischievous and rebellious since he was little. Your father and I tried to advise him, but he wouldn't listen. I even thought this day might come, but I never imagined it would be so soon." Mr. High emerged from inside. "Wife, crying won't bring him back to life. Quickly put on your hat and come with me." "Husband, wait a moment. Where are you going?" Mrs. High sighed, looking at her son's coffin. "Your father and I are going. Victor's body has been laid out, but his soul hasn't returned yet, so we have to go out every day to light incense for him until he's buried. After the burial, Master Nghia will personally perform a ritual to bring his soul home." "Oh, I see. Can I come with you, Aunt and Uncle? I want to light an incense stick for Victor." "Of course, you can." So, they left a relative to watch over the house and the incense burner for their son. As the three of them reached the road where the accident occurred, the clock showed almost 6 p.m. The sun had set, and the only light came from the motorbike's headlight. Kyle looked around. The accident scene had been cleared by the police. The bloodstains were washed away, leaving only painted outlines marking the scene. Mrs. High sat down by the roadside, clasping her hands, waiting for her husband to light incense and pray. "Namo Amitabha Buddha. Victor, are you here, my son?" Kyle had brought some fruit, pastries, and sticky rice. After arranging them, he handed an incense stick to Mr. High. While Mr. and Mrs. High prayed, Kyle remained silent, gazing intently at the white lines drawn on the road. Suddenly, he felt a cold chill run down his spine. His neck, hands, and feet stiffened. Only when Mr. High gently patted him did he seem to snap out of it. "Kyle, hurry, light an incense stick, and then let's go home." "Yes, sir." After lighting the incense, the three of them returned to the motorbike. As they drove away, Kyle clearly heard Mrs. High's cries. But for some reason, even after driving quite a distance from the High family's house, he still heard her wailing faintly. He turned his head to look behind him, and the crying stopped. He dismissed it and focused on driving home. Because some relatives were staying at Victor's house, Mr. and Mrs. High told Kyle to go home and rest. Kyle lit an incense stick at his friend's altar, then drove off. The usual route from Victor's house to his own was very familiar, but this time he felt strange. Especially because every time he passed a curve, Kyle felt as if someone was sitting behind him on the motorbike. But when he looked back, there was no one, just the empty seat. When he got home, Kyle saw Mrs. Lowe sitting under the porch, waiting for him. "You're back, son. I was just about to call and see if you were coming home. There are so many people over there, you don't necessarily need to stay overnight. Besides, it's more comfortable to sleep at home, right? Yes, I also didn't intend to stay overnight." After a few more words, Kyle went inside to shower. When he came out of the bathroom, he saw Mrs. Lowe arranging a meal on the table. "Mom, it's mealtime. I already ate. Now you eat. I'll wash the dishes later and then rest. Today was hot and I feel tired." "Then you go rest first, Mom. I can eat and wash the dishes myself. I'll go to bed first, but remember to check the gate carefully. Rest assured." After Mrs. Lowe went to her room, Kyle began to scoop rice into his bowl. But as he took the first bite, he heard the creaking sound of the gate outside, as if someone was opening it. There were only his mother and him in the house, so Kyle guessed it was a neighbor or friend. He put down his bowl and looked outside. Indeed, there was a figure by the gate, but because it was too dark, he couldn't immediately make out who it was. Not wanting to keep the guest waiting, Kyle got up and called out, "Who's there? Wait a moment." As he walked towards the gate, he reached out to press the light switch. Light from the porch illuminated the outside, but when Kyle reached the gate, he didn't see anyone anymore. Where did they go? He looked around again, but still saw no one. Kyle then thought maybe it was just some mischievous kids running by and playing pranks. So he quickly turned back to his unfinished meal. But just as he picked up his rice bowl, the creaking sound from outside the gate echoed again. "Damn it, are they trying to annoy me?" Kyle was about to throw the rice bowl in his hand at the person, but once again, there was no one outside the gate. Kyle gnashed his teeth. "Damn it, don't let me find you, you bastard." Kyle's rather loud curse reached Mrs. Lowe inside her room, and she came out, curious. "What's wrong, son?" "Nothing, Mom." After Kyle recounted everything to his mother, Mrs. Lowe shook her head. "Don't pay attention to those children. Why are you yelling so loudly? The neighbors will think we're fighting and start gossiping." Kyle let out a sigh. Perhaps because he didn't want to upset her, he stopped being angry. The sounds didn't bother him again. Kyle finished his meal and cleared the dishes. When he looked up, the clock on the wall showed almost midnight. Feeling tired after a whole day of running around helping with the funeral, he didn't want to stay up longer and returned to his room. Tonight, the atmosphere felt somewhat pleasant, even a little peaceful. This made his sleep come quickly. Kyle thought he would sleep until morning, but no. After lying down for a while, he was startled awake by a bothersome sound. "Damn it, are you trying to kill me?" He sat up abruptly and got out of bed. As he walked outside, Kyle held a broom, determined to teach the prankster a lesson. But when he was about 3 or 4 steps away from the gate, a flash of lightning illuminated the sky, revealing the figure's face. It was someone Kyle never thought he would see again. He stammered out the person's name. It was indeed Victor, standing outside the gate, his entire body covered in blood and a severe head wound. He stood there, his hands gripping the gate as if trying to open it and step inside. For the first time in his life, Kyle witnessed such a bizarre and horrifying sight. Even though Victor was his best friend, it couldn't stop his fear. Kyle recoiled backwards. Victor weakly called out, "Kyle, it hurts. It's so cold. Don't come any closer." Kyle shook his head, waving his hands, mumbling. Then a hand suddenly patted his shoulder, sending his fear to its peak. Kyle screamed. "What? Are you crazy?" From one surprise to another, Kyle now realized he was still lying on his familiar bed. Next to him was the table, and the hand that had just patted his shoulder was his mother's. "What's wrong, son? Are you having a nightmare?" "I was just dreaming." Kyle was about to recount his nightmare, but then decided against it. "It's nothing, Mom. I just had a premonition that startled me." "It's nothing, Mom. Go back to sleep." "Is everything really okay?" Kyle said, forcing a smile, mainly to reassure Mrs. Lowe. After she went back to her room, he looked through the window at the gate, and it was at this moment that Kyle saw it again. His eyes widened. It was a familiar silhouette, Victor's silhouette. Kyle immediately rubbed his eyes. When he opened them again, Victor's silhouette had vanished. It was all a dream, a hallucination, and I'm still feeling the effects of my drinking. This thought actually worked, and Kyle quickly regained his composure. The next morning, Kyle woke up around 7 a.m. Mrs. Lowe had returned from the market and was preparing food for her son. As Kyle came out, she was a little startled. "Kyle, what's wrong with you, son?" "What do you mean, Mom?" "Look in the mirror, your face." Kyle walked into the bathroom and looked at his reflection. Now it was his turn to be shocked. Both of his eyes were dark and sunken, as if he had just recovered from a severe illness. After brushing his teeth and washing his face, he came out. Mrs. Lowe looked at her son with concern. "How do you feel, son? Are you tired? Should I go buy some medicine?" "I'm fine, Mom, it's nothing." "It's late, you stay home, don't go to the funeral anymore." "But I have to go help Mr. and Mrs. High receive guests, and they're burying him this afternoon, how can I not go?" Mrs. Lowe sighed. "All right, you can go if you want, but if you feel tired, don't stay there. Being around such negative energy can easily make you sick." After finishing breakfast with the instant noodles Mrs. Lowe had bought, Kyle drove to Victor's funeral. Today, there were more guests. After parking his motorbike, Kyle busied himself making tea and buying miscellaneous things people needed. However, every time he walked past Victor's coffin, Kyle felt a chill run down his spine and goosebumps erupted all over his body. Time flew by. It was already 2 p.m. This was when Kyle was to perform Victor's funeral rites. Master Nghia, who presided over the ceremony, finished his prayers and instructed the funeral staff to carry Victor's coffin. At this point, Mrs. High cried out in despair. "Why did you leave your parents and go?" Her heartbroken cries and sobs made everyone present feel deeply moved. This sorrow lasted until they took the coffin to the graveyard. After Victor's grave was piled high with earth, Master Nghia performed a small ritual. From the moment the coffin was carried out, Kyle felt his body incredibly fatigued. His eyes felt heavy, his breath was hot, and a ringing sensation in his ears sounded like someone whispering. Feeling unwell, Kyle decided to go home instead of staying. As he left the cemetery gate, he looked at the procession. Kyle was astonished by a figure standing by Victor's grave. Or rather, it was his own figure, but dressed in strange, bloodied robes. Once again, Kyle was startled, and after just a blink, his friend's figure was gone. He raised his hand and slapped his own cheek quite hard. By the time he drove home, Kyle was utterly exhausted. He vaguely saw his mother come out, but he was too dazed to hear anything she said. He just waved his hands dismissively and walked into his room. As soon as he collapsed onto the bed, Kyle's eyes closed and he plunged into darkness. Everything seemed to be over. But in his daze, Kyle saw his friend again for the third time. Victor stood not too far away, his hands raised, covered in blood, then fell back to the ground. "Kyle, it hurts so much, I'm dead." Kyle was so scared his whole body trembled. He didn't know what to do but clasped his hands together. "Please, my friend Victor, please don't haunt me, I'm scared." He could only utter a few words before everything turned dark and mysterious for Kyle. When he woke up, he was surprised to find himself not in his familiar room, but in a hospital bed. Outside, the sky was just dawning. Mrs. Lowe was not in the room, but he saw her sleeping hunched over a chair. "Mom," Kyle weakly called out. Mrs. Lowe quickly woke up. "How do you feel, son?" "I'm fine, Mom. Why am I here?" "You scared me so much, you know. I came home and you had a high fever. I was so scared I ran to the neighbors to get help and they brought you here. You've been having a fever all night and it only broke towards morning. How do you feel now? Do you feel uncomfortable? Should I call a nurse or doctor?" "I'm fine, Mom. When can I go home?" "The doctor said you need to stay here for observation because this dengue fever is serious. We can't be careless. Remember, if anything happens to you, how can I live?" "Mom, don't say that. Look, I'm perfectly healthy." "You're not healthy at all. Stay here and rest. When you're fully recovered, I'll let you go home." Knowing he couldn't disobey his mother, Kyle sighed. However, it wasn't that he wanted to go home. It was that he now realized Victor's spirit might not have found peace and was still clinging to him. He didn't know if this was good or bad, but Kyle wanted to seek out Master Nghia to ask for his help. From that day on, Kyle was constantly anxious and worried. He even became afraid at night, not knowing if Victor would appear again. Of course, he didn't dare to close his eyes. When night fell, Mrs. Lowe appeared with a box of food and some medicine. "Eat and take your medicine, okay? How do you feel?" "I'm fine, Mom," he said, then eagerly ate his meal. After all, he hadn't eaten anything since yesterday. As he was almost finished eating, Kyle noticed his mother's troubled expression. "What's wrong, Mom? Why are you so deep in thought?" "I feel so sorry for Mr. and Mrs. High. While Victor was alive, he was mischievous and caused all sorts of trouble. Now that he's dead, he's still tormenting his parents, not letting them rest." "What are you talking about, Mom? Victor's funeral is over, isn't it?" "You don't know, it's not that simple. Just now I was cooking, preparing to bring food to you when Mrs. High came. What was she doing?" "She came to borrow money." I was surprised, but when I asked, she told me that yesterday, after the funeral, Master Nghia, along with Mr. and Mrs. High, went to the site of Victor's accident to perform a soul-calling ritual. After chanting a few spells, Master Nghia suddenly changed color. He revealed that a few days ago, he had performed a ritual and sent the spirits of the old man and his granddaughter from the abandoned mound to the pagoda. However, he never expected the girl's spirit to refuse to let go of Victor. She only caused the accident to scare him. Now, Victor's soul is being controlled by the old man and his granddaughter, who want to take him as a husband. To retrieve his soul, it will cost 50 million dong. Otherwise, Victor will be trapped forever and never find peace. And Mr. and Mrs. Hai, who just paid for the funeral, have no money left and have to borrow. Kyle immediately blurted out, "That's ridiculous. There's no spirit possessing him." Before he could finish, he realized he had spoken out of turn. "What did you say, son?" "Oh, nothing, Mom. Now that I'm well, I want to go home." "Well, what's well about it? You should let the doctor monitor you more." "But I am really well. Let me go home." Due to his son's persistence, Mrs. Lowe also asked the doctor to check, and luckily, Kyle was healthy enough to be discharged. When he arrived home, he found an excuse to grab some things, then drove off. Leaving the house, Kyle drove straight to Master Nghap's house. As he reached the courtyard, he saw the master feeding worms to his pet bird. Master Nghap. Recognizing Kyle, Master Nghap was a little surprised. "Young man, what are you doing here?" "Master Nghap, I want to ask, why did you continue lying about the spirits at the mound? Mr. and Mrs. Hai are spending 50 million dong for nothing." "I never said that." "Are you serious? I can go directly and ask them." Master Nghap hesitated for a moment, then chuckled. "You know, our plan was somewhat successful. We gained everyone's trust. But they're so stingy, so I just used a little improvisation. I wasn't trying to cheat anyone. I was planning to call you after everything was settled to give you your share." Kyle shook his head, his eyes firm. "I won't take the money. I hope you immediately abandon that idea. Victor's parents genuinely don't have the money. Don't make them suffer. I'm telling you, if you don't drop this, I'll go to the police and tell them everything. Then you won't be able to practice your profession anymore." Master Nghap looked surprised and flustered. "Hey, we're in this together, aren't we? Don't make things difficult for me." "I'm not making things difficult for you, but Victor and I are close as brothers, and his parents are like my own parents. I said enough, I hope you understand." Without waiting for Master Nghap to say anything more, Kyle turned and drove away. But he didn't know that his words not only startled Master Nghap, but also made him smirk maliciously. "You think you can threaten me with those words? I don't scare easily. You're still too young and naive. I'll make sure you reunite with your friend." The night before Victor's accident, he had gone to Master Nghap's house to demand more money. Of course, Master Nghap refused. That's when Victor threatened to expose Master Nghap's use of dark magic and the spirits he kept. Enraged, Master Nghap immediately caused Victor's accident. After Victor's death, Master Nghap exploited it to gain trust and extort money from Mr. and Mrs. Hai. Now, Kyle had come to threaten Master Nghap, but he was unfazed. He quickly returned to his room and took out a small clay jar from a cabinet. Previously, when he visited Kyle's house to perform a ritual, he had obtained Kyle's birth date and a few strands of his hair. In less than an hour, Master Nghap had completed a potent charm. Looking at the effigy in his hand, he muttered, "Only tonight and you will cease to exist in this world." Time passed. At 8 p.m., Kyle finished dinner, took some more medicine, and returned to his room to rest. Everything seemed normal until, in a daze, he felt his body was no longer under his control. Kyle felt himself getting out of bed and walking outside. Mrs. Lowe was fast asleep. Kyle got on his motorbike and started riding. He didn't know where he was going and couldn't stop. In fact, he kept speeding up. "What is this? What's happening to me?" And then, in his confusion, Kyle heard a familiar voice in his ear. "Kyle, quickly, bite your tongue." This voice was very familiar because it was Victor's voice. In this moment, Kyle was confused whether to obey or not, but Victor's voice rang out again, louder. He was desperate, and so Kyle, in a trance, could only obey. And when the pain shot through his tongue, his eyes snapped open. His hands and feet regained feeling. The motorbike stopped. He was terrified. Only a few meters more, and Kyle would have plunged into the ravine of the mountain pass. Good heavens, what's going on? And then, from one surprise to another, Kyle now looked into the rearview mirror. His throat felt tight because he saw Victor sitting behind him. If it had been normal, Kyle would have abandoned the bike and run, but now he just sat there quietly. Victor's voice rang out again. "That damn shaman tricked me, and now he's trying to harm you too. Don't worry, I'll make him pay." And with that, Kyle quickly closed his eyes. Victor's reflection in the mirror glowed red, and in just a blink, he vanished. In less than 5 minutes, no further strange events occurred. Kyle quickly drove back home. Upon arriving home, he said nothing, just rushed to bed and slept until morning. When the sun peeked out, Kyle heard news that people were talking about. Last night, Master and Gap suddenly ran out of his house, mouth agape as if something terrifying was chasing him. And it was this fear that made Master and Gap oblivious to the road. And when it was past midnight, nearing dawn, countless trucks drove through Nghia Thuc village. And among those trucks, one hit Master and Gap. Of course, the fault was entirely his when he suddenly rushed into the middle of the road. No matter how much the truck driver tried to brake, he couldn't react in time. News of Master and Gap's death quickly spread. No one knew the truth behind it. They only thought he was haunted by the spirits of the old man and his granddaughter from the mound, who were seeking revenge. Only Kyle knew the truth. A month later, the shrine at the abandoned mound was completed. The villagers went there every day to light incense with deep reverence, fearing that if they did anything wrong, these spirits would torment them, just like Master and Gap. There was also another rumor about Victor. People whispered that his soul couldn't find peace and had turned into a vengeful ghost, constantly appearing to harass people. Mr. and Mrs. High also tried to find various shamans to perform rituals to bring their son's soul home, but it was all in vain. It wasn't until a high-ranking monk from a nearby pagoda came and performed a ritual that Victor's soul was finally taken to the pagoda. After the ritual ended, no one ever saw Victor's spirit again.